On a quiet morning, Jasper stepped outside and saw something he never expected: a giant eagle casting a shadow over his front yard. It wasn't acting wild or restless, just calmly standing there, looking like it had a reason for being exactly where it was. This wasn't something you'd ever see in a place like Greenwillow. A mix of curiosity and worry bubbled up inside him as he moved toward it, only to stop cold when he realized why it was there. His fingers shook as he reached for his phone to call 911, his mind spinning from what he'd just seen. He'd never been this close to an eagle before, and the size of it in real life was overwhelming. When it first landed out back, he couldn't believe his eyes. The eagles from pictures didn't do it justice. It was way bigger than he thought. Even so, something about it pulled him in. He felt like he needed to understand why it had come. "This is probably the only time I'll ever see something like this," Jasper whispered to himself, nudging the front door open. The sight was incredible, and with each step he took, his chest tightened. Then the eagle stretched out its wings, and Jasper stopped, frozen. His awe turned to dread when he noticed what the eagle was actually standing over. Trying not to scare it, Jasper crept forward, moving slowly. The eagle flapped its wings a bit, maybe as a warning, but it didn't fly off. It just stood its ground, still and focused. Jasper scanned it carefully, barely believing any of this was real. Then his eyes caught something on the ground, and a cold wave of fear swept through him. It was hard to notice at first. If he'd stayed inside, he never would have seen it. But now, standing this close, it was clear as day. Jasper's stomach dropped, and he patted his pockets in a panic. He didn't want to move too fast. The last thing he wanted was to scare the eagle away now, not after what he'd seen. "Dang it," Jasper muttered under his breath, realizing his phone wasn't on him. He glanced back toward the house. He must have left it inside. He needed to call the police right away, but he also couldn't risk losing the eagle. He had to act fast, even though it hadn't flown off yet. That could change at any second. Carefully, Jasper started backing up. No sudden moves. His hand reached for the doorknob just as the eagle let out a sharp cry. "Please stay put," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. To his relief, the bird was still right there, wings twitching but not taking flight. He slipped inside quickly, his heart racing, desperate to find his phone before the moment was gone. As soon as he was out of the eagle's sight and free to move without spooking it, Jasper broke into a run. His phone was right where he left it, on the kitchen counter, next to the window, where he first spotted the bird. Without wasting a second, he grabbed it and dialed 911 while heading to the fridge, an idea forming fast in his mind. The fridge door swung open just as the dispatcher picked up. "This might sound weird, but there's a giant eagle in my front yard," Jasper said. His voice rushed as he explained what he had seen. He kept talking while scanning the shelves, and finally he spotted what he was after. He grabbed the container of pre-cut raw chicken and made his way back to the front door, phone still to his ear. The dispatcher gave calm, clear instructions. "Stay a safe distance from the eagle. I'll tell the responding officers to turn off their sirens when they get close, so the bird doesn't get startled." Jasper agreed, ended the call, and found himself face to face with the bird once again. Now he had one job: keep the eagle in place until help arrived. He slipped the phone into his pocket and tore open the packet of chicken. Right away, he saw the eagle shift slightly, clearly interested. He picked up a small piece and tossed it gently in the bird's direction. It landed near its feet. The eagle flinched, wings spreading wide, and Jasper's stomach dropped. He thought he'd just scared it off. But then the eagle looked down, poked at the meat, and ate it. It didn't fly away. Its wings spread a little more as it locked eyes with Jasper, focused and alert. It wasn't panicked. It looked like it wanted more. Jasper tossed a few more pieces onto the lawn, spacing them out just enough to keep the eagle busy. The bird stayed put, cautiously pecking at the food, but never taking its eyes off him. Jasper moved slowly, his hands steady. He could feel how tense the moment was. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a few neighbors peeking through their windows, drawn by the strange sight. Curiosity was spreading. Soon a small group had gathered near his fence, whispering among themselves. Mrs. Thompson from next door stood frozen, phone in hand, snapping pictures. "Is that really an eagle?" someone asked. Jasper gave a small nod, eyes still on the bird. He just hoped the police would get there quickly. The eagle flapped its wings again, and the little crowd gasped. "Please, stay back," Jasper said, trying to keep the scene calm. When the police pulled up, they took a moment to look over the situation from a distance before stepping forward carefully. Officer Ramirez approached Jasper with a cautious nod. "That's quite the guest you've got," he said, voice low and steady. Jasper explained what had happened, pointing toward the eagle, now calmly working its way through the chicken. The officers talked quietly among themselves, figuring out how to keep both the bird and the crowd safe. The officers worked with Jasper to keep the eagle calm and make sure no one in the crowd got too close. "Just keep feeding it," Officer Ramirez told him. Jasper nodded and tossed another bit of chicken to the bird. The crowd stayed quiet, clearly fascinated. One officer radioed for more support, mentioning they'd need animal control. Jasper felt a small wave of relief. Help was on its way. For now, the eagle looked content. Knowing this was outside their usual territory, the police had called for animal control to step in. Jasper kept feeding the eagle, starting to feel a little less on edge. Officer Ramirez stayed nearby, ready to help if needed. More officers showed up, setting a perimeter around the area to keep things under control. Just then, Jasper's phone buzzed. A neighbor had texted, "What's happening?" Jasper quickly replied, "Waiting for animal control." Fingers crossed. Soon the animal control team arrived and began looking over the situation. Their lead, a calm and confident woman named Sarah, walked up to Jasper with a reassuring smile. "We've got this," she said gently. Her team stayed a few steps back, quietly watching the eagle. "It seems healthy, just stressed," one of them noted. Sarah nodded and turned to Jasper. "Keep doing what you're doing with the chicken. It's helping." Jasper kept at it, gently tossing more pieces toward the eagle to keep it steady. "Here you go, buddy," he said quietly. The eagle stayed focused on the food, but its eyes never left Jasper. Meanwhile, Sarah's team started moving in, slowly unpacking their gear. "Nice work, Jasper," Sarah said with a nod. That little bit of encouragement helped. He knew he had to keep the eagle calm while they got into position. The team readied their equipment and edged in carefully, prepared for a safe catch. They brought a large net and had a tranquilizer gun as backup. "Let's stay smooth and quick," Sarah told her crew. Jasper tossed another piece of chicken and watched the eagle snap it up. The officers moved in step, barely making a sound. Jasper's heart was racing, but he stayed focused, doing his best to help. As the team got closer, the eagle shifted, clearly sensing something. It grew uneasy, so Jasper tossed a bigger piece of chicken its way. "Easy now," he whispered. The eagle flapped its wings and let out a sharp cry, making people in the crowd jump. It's okay," Jasper said, his eyes flicking to Sarah. She held up a hand, signaling her team to wait. Jasper continued feeding, and after a tense pause, the eagle relaxed a little and went back to pecking at the food. Then, in one careful motion, Sarah threw the net over the bird while another team member secured its legs. The eagle screeched, but didn't put up much of a fight. The crowd broke into applause, clapping and cheering. Jasper finally let out the breath he'd been holding. "You did great," Sarah said, giving him a thumbs up. The team gently placed the eagle inside a large, well-ventilated cage to transport it safely. While checking the eagle, Animal Control spotted something unusual, an old, faded metal tag on its leg with a streak of dried blood around it. Sarah leaned in, gently lifting the eagle's leg for a better look. "What do we have here?" she muttered. Jasper stepped closer, curious. The tag was barely visible under the feathers, worn with age. Sarah frowned slightly. "We're going to need to take this off," she said quietly. The officers worked carefully to remove the tag from the eagle's leg, noticing how much it resembled a military dog tag. "Hold it steady," Sarah said, as another officer leaned in with a small set of cutters. The eagle squawked in protest, but didn't fight much. "Got it," the officer said, as he held up the tag. Jasper leaned forward, eyes wide. "That looks like a dog tag," he said. Sarah gave a slow nod, studying it closely. "It sure does. We'll need to look into this." Jasper explained why he had called them in the first place, because of the tag, and the awful thought that maybe the bird had gotten it from someone hurt, or worse. "It just felt important," he said, glancing at the officers. Sarah's face grew serious. "You absolutely did the right thing," she said. Another officer turned the tag over in his hand. "This might be part of something much bigger," he added quietly. The officers decided to send the tag off for further analysis, hoping it might offer more clues about where the eagle had come from. "We'll run it through the system," Sarah said, passing the tag to another officer, who sealed it in a clear evidence bag. Jasper watched as they wrote everything down, careful and methodical. "We'll keep you updated," Sarah told him. The eagle sat still in its cage, watching them with sharp, unblinking eyes. Jasper had a strange feeling this wasn't over. Words spread fast around the neighborhood. People couldn't stop talking about it. "Did you hear about the eagle?" Mrs. Thompson asked over the fence, leaning in close. Jasper nodded, already feeling worn out by the buzz. "They found a dog tag on it," he said simply. The neighbors whispered among themselves, tossing around guesses and theories. Jasper looked toward the animal control van as it drove away, wondering what that tiny tag might lead to. Still uneasy, Jasper decided to start looking into it himself. He sat down at his computer and began typing in every phrase he could think of. Eagle carrying dog tag, military bird tracking, tag on bird claw. Search results flooded in, but nothing immediately useful. "This might take a while," he muttered, clicking through links and pages, hoping something would stand out. After a bit of digging, he came across something surprising. One article talked about how birds had once been used for military missions during wartime. That got his attention fast. "No way," he said under his breath. He kept reading, learning about special programs that trained animals for surveillance or delivery roles. It all sounded wild, but that tag on the eagle made it seem at least possible. His interest was officially hooked. He kept comparing photos of military tags online to the one he had seen in the officer's hand. The shape, the engravings, it all looked similar. "This can't be a coincidence," he said, jotting down notes on a scrap of paper. But the more he uncovered, the more questions popped up. Why had the eagle come here? What happened to the person linked to that tag? Jasper knew he wasn't going to get real answers just from online searches. He needed more. Determined to dig deeper, Jasper made up his mind to head to the local library and see what else he could find. He grabbed his notebook and scribbled down a list of books and topics he wanted to search for. Maybe the library will have something more solid, he thought. There was a buzz of excitement under his nerves. Whatever this was, it felt bigger than he first thought. Tomorrow, the library was his first stop. The possibility of a military link only made him more determined to figure out the eagle's story. He couldn't just leave it now. "There's got to be more to this," he said quietly as he packed his bag. The tag, the eagle, the whole situation, it all hinted at something important. His mind kept racing with possibilities. That night, as he set everything out for the next day, he felt even more sure he had to see this through. At the library the next morning, Jasper made a beeline for the military history section, looking for anything on trained birds or tags like the one he saw. He also jumped on one of the library's computers, typing in search terms that might turn up something useful. Operation Skywatch, he typed, hoping it would lead somewhere. The librarian, noticing how focused he looked, walked over. "Need help finding something?" she asked. He explained briefly, and she directed him to the microfilm archives. There, Jasper found several old documents and records that mentioned something called Operation Skywatch, a now-defunct military program. As he flipped through the old files and yellowed pages, his eyes grew wide. "This is it," he whispered to himself. The materials described a secretive mission that involved training eagles for surveillance tasks. His heart pounded as he scribbled down notes. The more he read, the clearer it became. This was no ordinary program. It had layers he hadn't expected. The documents talked about how eagles had been used in covert operations, fitted with small cameras and equipment. Jasper couldn't believe it. "Seriously?" he said under his breath, flipping through more pages. The idea was to use their natural flight and eyesight for military observation. It all started to click. The tag on the eagle, the way it acted, everything. Jasper kept writing down anything that seemed important. This explained a lot, but not everything. He also came across background on the project's history, and what eventually led to it being shut down. There were hints of internal arguments and moral questions that caused the program to end suddenly. "So why did they stop?" Jasper said softly, scanning a page filled with handwritten notes and reports. The deeper he got into it, the more it felt like he was uncovering something long forgotten. That eagle in his yard wasn't just lost. It was tied to something far bigger. With all the notes he'd gathered, Jasper decided it was time to take the next step. He needed real answers, something beyond books and old articles. He would head to a military base and try to speak to someone who might actually know about Operation Skywatch. "All right, let's take this further," he said, packing his bag once more. He didn't know what he'd find, but he had a feeling he was getting closer. The library had opened a door. Now he just had to walk through it. Jasper walked up to the base gate and explained why he was there. "I need to talk to someone about an old project," he said, holding up his notes. The guard gave him a curious look, but made a quick call. A few minutes later, Jasper was escorted to a small office where he waited, shifting in his seat. Eventually, the door opened and an officer walked in. That's when Jasper met Captain Reynolds. The captain listened carefully as Jasper shared his story, taking a close look at the photo of the eagle's tag. "This is definitely unusual," Reynolds said, zooming in on the image. Jasper explained how he'd found the eagle and everything he'd uncovered so far. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed. "Operation Skywatch, huh? It's been years since I've heard that name," he said. "Let's see what we can dig up." Reynolds took another look at the photo and nodded. "This tag looks like it came from one of our old programs," he confirmed. He turned to his computer, typing quickly. "We need to check the records," he said, motioning for Jasper to follow. They headed to the base archives, filled with rows of files and binders. Jasper felt a mix of nerves and curiosity as they stepped inside. After some searching, they found what they were looking for. "Here it is," Reynolds said, pointing to a folder. Jasper leaned in, reading along. The eagle had a name, Thunder, and had been a major part of the Skywatch project. Thunder was trained for high-level recon, Reynolds explained. Jasper's eyes widened. "So it really was a military bird," he said, finally feeling like all his digging had been worth it. "We need to go further. I want to know why this eagle ended up in your front yard," Reynolds said, closing the file. They agreed to return the next day to continue the search. As Jasper left the base, his mind was buzzing. The pieces were coming together, but there were still gaps. He felt more driven than ever to find the truth. This was far from over. The whole idea was to use eagles where it was too dangerous for people, Reynolds had told him. They were trained to carry cameras and gather intel from above. He paused, but over time, new tech and ethical concerns shut it all down. Jasper nodded, taking it in. Some of the trainers didn't like that, Reynolds added quietly. Then Reynolds took another look at the photo. But this tag, this isn't Thunder's original, he said. Jasper's brows lifted. So Thunder was still part of an active mission? He asked. Reynolds nodded slowly. Exactly. The real question is, why did Thunder show up now, after all these years? Jasper felt a chill run through him. This wasn't just a random visit. Something bigger was at play. They agreed to meet at the archives again and search for more, especially mission reports and anything tied to Thunder. We need to see if there's a record of what his last assignment was, Reynolds said. Jasper agreed. Maybe we'll finally get some answers. Reynolds gave him a firm nod. Let's hope the records are still there. Reynolds made a few calls to make sure they'd have clearance for classified documents related to Operation Skywatch. We're set for tomorrow, he told Jasper. We'll have access to everything we need. Jasper felt a flicker of hope. All right then, let's solve this thing. With a plan in place, both men felt the weight of whatever they were about to uncover. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. Their trip to the archives was the next step in unlocking the mystery of why the eagle had appeared. Jasper and Captain Reynolds arrived early and were met by an archivist who led them into a secured room. Everything you're looking for should be in here, she said, gesturing towards several boxes marked Operation Skywatch. Jasper's chest tightened with anticipation. Let's dig in, Reynolds said, lifting the lid off the first box. Jasper nodded, feeling ready for whatever they might uncover. Inside, they began sorting through stacks of old papers and records. Let's start with this pile, Reynolds said, pulling out a bundle of aged documents. Jasper quietly flipped through the folders, scanning for any sign of Thunder's name. The room was quiet except for the soft rustle of papers and the steady buzz from overhead lights. With each page, Jasper's excitement grew. Something big felt just around the corner. It wasn't long before they hit gold. One thick folder was packed with information about Thunder's training and past missions. Here we go, Reynolds said, passing it to Jasper. He opened it slowly, eyes darting across page after page. This bird was incredible, Jasper whispered, reading about the eagle's skills and the high-level missions it had been part of. Thunder wasn't just any bird, he had been a vital part of something much bigger. Reynolds leaned over and pointed to one of the pages. It outlined a mission where Thunder had gone missing. So he disappeared during a mission, Jasper said, thinking out loud. And now he shows up in my yard, after all these years. It was strange and fascinating. The idea that Thunder had vanished and then returned out of nowhere added a whole new twist to the story. With the reports in hand, Jasper felt like he was finally getting closer to the truth. There's got to be a reason he came to me, he said, looking at Reynolds. Maybe he's searching for something familiar, Reynolds suggested. The pieces were starting to form a bigger picture, but there were still questions. Jasper knew what he had to do next. I need to talk to someone who really knows these birds, he said, more focused than ever. Jasper tracked down Dr. Morgan, an expert on military-trained eagles, and reached out. Her contact info came up in a search, and he gave her a call right away. Dr. Morgan, I think I've found something important, he told her, explaining the whole situation. She listened closely, then replied, I'd love to help. They set up a video call so Jasper could show her the tag and go over what he'd found. For the first time, he felt like he was finally getting somewhere. On the call, Dr. Morgan confirmed what Jasper had hoped. This eagle was Thunder. She began sharing stories about Thunder's past and how well-known he had been during the program. "He was truly one of the most skilled we ever trained," she said. Jasper leaned in, fascinated. Knowing Thunder had such a rich history made the whole experience feel even more surreal. Jasper learned just how special Thunder really was. Dr. Morgan explained that the eagle had been trained to respond to over 50 commands and had a powerful homing ability. Thunder could find his way back from miles away, she said. She also talked about the deep bonds Thunder had formed with his handlers. These birds weren't just part of the mission, they were trusted partners, she said. Jasper sat back, filled with a quiet respect for the bird, for the program, and for the people who had cared for him. Dr. Morgan explained why Thunder might have ended up in Jasper's yard, pointing to the bird's strong homing instincts. "Eagles like Thunder have a natural sense for returning to meaningful places," she said. Jasper paused to think. "So, my yard could be one of those places?" he asked. Dr. Morgan nodded. "It's possible something there might have reminded him of training, or even home." That idea settled deep in Jasper's chest. He could feel a real connection forming. Understanding more of Thunder's past made Jasper feel even closer to the eagle. "He's been through so much," Dr. Morgan said softly. Jasper nodded, thinking about everything Thunder must have survived. It didn't feel like random chance anymore. It felt personal. "I think we're connected somehow," he said quietly. Dr. Morgan smiled. "You are now, Jasper. You're part of his story. Take care of him." Jasper nodded, feeling that promise settle like a weight on his shoulders, in the best way. Later, Jasper and Captain Reynolds sat down to figure out where the blood on the tag could have come from. "Might have been another animal," Reynolds suggested. "Or maybe Thunder was injured mid-flight," Jasper added. They went back and forth, thinking through all the possibilities. "We'll need to take a closer look at Thunder," Reynolds said in the end. Jasper agreed. It was the next piece of the puzzle. They checked on Thunder and found he was having trouble flying. The bird flapped his wings, but couldn't quite lift off. "Poor guy," Jasper murmured, watching. Reynolds knelt down carefully to examine him. "Might be a sprained wing," he said after a moment. Jasper's face tightened. "No wonder he crash-landed in my yard," he said. "He must have been worn out and hurt." They pulled out a map and started drawing lines between key locations where Thunder was found and where he might have been headed. Jasper held the ruler while Reynolds marked potential flight paths. "If he was trying to get back to base, these woods could have been right in his path," Reynolds said. Jasper traced the line with his finger. "Yeah, it lines up," he agreed. The line led straight to a dense forest. They both stared at the map. "Those woods might be where everything started," Jasper said. Reynolds nodded. "Could be clues out there, something that shows what happened before he reached you." They packed a few supplies, loaded up the map, and headed out. Jasper felt the familiar tug of nerves and curiosity. Whatever was in those trees, they were ready to find it. The woods were thick and quiet when Jasper and Reynolds arrived. The map stayed in Jasper's hand as they stepped carefully between the trees. "Stay close," Reynolds said. The forest floor was uneven, leaves crunching under their boots. Jasper glanced at the map often, trying to stay on course. "He must have come through here," he said quietly. The silence around them made every step feel heavy, every shadow full of possibility. Deeper in the woods, they spotted an old, run-down cabin. It sat hidden among the trees, roof half caved in. "That looks promising," Reynolds said, pointing. Jasper nodded, heart picking up speed. They moved in slowly, peering through one of the broken windows. "Let's take a look," Jasper said. He pushed the door open, and it creaked loud against the silence. Inside, the cabin was dusty and dim, cluttered with scattered papers and old supplies. As Jasper sorted through the scattered papers inside the cabin, things began to click. "These documents talk about training exercises," he said, holding one up. Reynolds skimmed it quickly. "Looks like they were out here not long ago," he replied. Jasper's eyes widened as it all came together. "Thunder must have been sent to get help," he said quietly. "That would explain the blood on the tag," Reynolds added, his tone turning serious. Now they understood just how urgent this really was. Without wasting time, they contacted the authorities. Reynolds got on the radio and gave a full report. "We may have an injured soldier in this area," he told them. Jasper stood nearby, watching the response unfold. Within minutes, backup was on the way. Helicopters circled overhead, and medical teams arrived, sweeping the woods. Jasper stood by with hope rising in his chest. He just hoped they weren't too late. Then a voice shouted from the trees, "Over here!" Jasper and Reynolds rushed toward the sound. Medics were kneeling beside an older man, helping him sit up. "That's him," Reynolds confirmed. The man looked up at them, worn and weak, but conscious. "Thunder," he whispered. "You found him?" Jasper nodded, feeling a lump rise in his throat. The handler had been out here alone, hurt, waiting for help that finally came. Not far from where the handler was found, another soldier was discovered, injured but alive. Medics worked fast, moving with urgency. "We've got them both," one of them said. Jasper stepped back, watching as the two men were airlifted out to safety. "You did good," Reynolds said, placing a hand on Jasper's shoulder. Jasper let out a slow breath, finally feeling it all settle in. Thunder's mission was finished. The soldiers were safe. The whole thing felt almost unreal, but deeply worth it. News of what happened spread fast. Jasper was quickly recognized in town for his role in solving the mystery and helping with the rescue. Local reporters shared the story, calling him a hometown hero. Neighbors stopped him to offer congratulations, and kids pointed in quiet admiration. "You really did something incredible," one boy said, eyes wide. Jasper smiled, humbled. "I just followed where the story led," he said, grateful for every step that brought them to this point. Thunder was returned to the military, but Jasper was given a special invitation to visit the base and learn more about the Eagle's training. Captain Reynolds welcomed him and led him to a field where a small demonstration was set up. Jasper stood in quiet amazement as he watched Thunder respond to commands with sharp focus. "He's a remarkable bird," Reynolds said with pride. Jasper nodded slowly. "I had no idea eagles were capable of so much," he said, genuinely moved. Watching Thunder work made Jasper feel even more grateful for the bond they'd built. Back in Greenwillow, the community came together to celebrate the resolution of the mystery. A small ceremony was held at the local park, honoring Jasper and the team. The mayor stood before a cheering crowd. "To Jasper and the team, for their courage and quick thinking," he said, handing Jasper a certificate. The applause was loud and warm. Jasper couldn't help but blush, touched by the support around him. The event was filled with laughter, stories, and a quiet pride shared by everyone who had followed the journey. Later, Jasper sat on his porch, reflecting on all that had happened. It was strange to think that just days ago, life had been completely ordinary. "Who would have thought an eagle in my front yard would lead to all this?" he said to himself with a small laugh. He thought about Thunder, the people he'd met, and the lives they'd helped. A deep sense of gratitude settled in. Jasper smiled, feeling ready. Whatever life brought next, he'd meet it with open eyes and an open heart. If this story left you inspired, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who could use a reminder that even the most unexpected moments can lead to something extraordinary.